We're going to get started. Good morning, everyone. It's still morning on Friday. Looks like we've got maybe close to 20 people here. I'm sure we'll get a few people coming in. So thanks for joining us this month's roundtable. We're going to be, I'm Andrea LeBlanc. I'm the communications manager at Palatine Library and also the current ILA forum manager. We're going to jump right in today. Our first speaker is John Knirr. He's the web and IT administrator at the Illinois Heartland Library System. And today he's going to be sharing best practices for file storage and effective ways to share among staff. I realized that you guys can all hear me, yeah? Okay, I want to make sure. And John has worked in IT for over 15 years, and his experience ranges from on-site hardware management to cloud-based data and device management. He's currently leading IHLS in transitioning from local server-based data management to a serverless cloud-based data system with Microsoft SharePoint at its core. Phew. Prior to joining IHLS, he was the owner-operator of the Screensavers, a small consumer and business IT company in Chesterfield, Missouri. And while operating the Screensavers, John networked over 1,000 homes and businesses, repaired more than 3,600 computers, and replaced the screens of 5,000 plus tablets and cell phones. Well, that's a big, that's a lot of work there. Please, put your questions in the chats, and at the end of John's discussion, then we'll open up the floor for questions. And then after that, we'll transition over to our next speaker, which is Nicole Zimmerman from Rails, Reaching Across America. America. Oh, that's so funny. Reaching Across Illinois Library Systems. She is the marketing and public relations specialist there. She's going to share about how the Rails My Library Is campaign has successfully helped Illinois libraries share their stories by utilizing the campaign's resources. She's worked in public relations and graphic design since college, including 9 years with Starbucks as a trainer and project manager. That's a lot of coffee. That's great. I didn't know that about you, Nikki. That's fun. And a year teaching English in Japan. That's exciting as well. At Rails, Nikki writes the weekly e-news, records and edits podcasts and videos, and produces marketing collateral. She helped create and launch the My Library Is campaign website. She holds a BA in communications from the University of Wisconsin in Stevens Point and a theater minor from the University of Minnesota in the Twin Cities. So again, once she's done, we'll open up for questions after that. So go ahead, John, take it away. We're anxious to hear about files and how to share and store these.
Okay, let me share my screen here. Let's see here. This one up here. And let me start. There we go. They should be on. So welcome again. My name is John Knirr, and I do work for IHLS. My primary responsibilities here deal with the hardware and the software and all the data on those machines. A year ago, when COVID hit, we were forced, like everybody else, to shut down quickly and head home. And our IT department, we have a very good IT department, but we found ourselves in a little bit of a pickle in that everything we did was used to being in the office. We used the old model of file sharing and computer networking. And while that does work when someone's working from home, it does not work very, very well at all. What I hope to do today is to kind of show the old model, what we used to use, and kind of show a little bit about cloud storage, how that model is different, show some of the advantages of it, some of the disadvantages of it, and then also show what I think is probably the best way to share files using cloud storage amongst your teams and amongst your other members inside your organizations. So the old models, which you can see here, is what we use, where there's basically one server in the middle and all the client computers connected to the server. Basically, the files are in one place. They are on the server. You only have access to them on that server. And it's basically, there is no collaboration when you're doing this way. Each person works on a file one at a time. One person works on it. When they're finished, the next person does. You cannot work at the same time. And then the last thing is that access to these files is determined by a network admin. You can't suddenly say, oh, I want someone else to have access to it. The way we got around that at IHLS was we had one giant we called it the U drive, and everybody shared their files on that U drive. The problem with that is that if you have something that's a little bit private, you can't put it on there because everybody can see it. You have to trust that the marketing team is only looking at the marketing files and the operations team is only looking at the operation files. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, that is not the case. So when COVID hit, we switched, we were planning on doing this anyway, but we kind of hurried it up and went ahead with it. And we switched to a cloud-based model. With the cloud-based model, there is no on-premise data. All of our data was uploaded through a file sync to a cloud server that Microsoft owns, but it works the same with Google. And the files are stored there, and they're stored on multiple data centers. I think Microsoft has about 25 data centers around the country. Our data is probably on some of the data is probably on every one of those files, and it's linked back to our home location. File data is stored in more than one place. It's on your computer in this case. The old model, the information was on the server only. Here, the data is actually on your computer and on the cloud server. And if anybody is being shared with, it's on their computer at the same time, which means that you can collaborate now in real time. If if person A is working on the Word document and person B is working the same document, you see each other's work. If someone makes a change, that change is converted over to the other person in real time. And I put real time in quotes because it all depends on a few factors: how fast your internet is, how fast the network is going, how busy it is. But generally speaking, within a few seconds, all the data is synced back and forth. And then, as I said, the data is spread out over multiple data centers to verify integrity and to make sure that the data is secure. If something should go down at the Illinois server that's up by Champaign, we're switched over to a server in North Dakota right away, and there's no switch, there's no change, there's no loss of any data. Now, the pros of doing this situation, the first one is being able to collaborate in real time with other people. One person can be working on the file at the same time as the other person. The other pro is that it has automatic backups. As soon as we turn on our computers, all the data on our computers is synced up to the cloud so that there's a backup. If for something should happen, the computer fails, and this has happened several times since we switched, I can just hand someone another computer and they can log in and their data is downloaded back to their computer almost instantaneously. Every time I do this, people look at me skeptically and say, is my data on here? And I say, yes, just log in. And they're always surprised when it happens. It's kind of almost a relief factor that it does. It's just, I guess it's something that we just haven't got used to trusting. The other thing that's a really big advantage is versioning, which is something that both Google supports and both Microsoft supports. And that's every time you save a file, it doesn't replace that file. It takes that file and puts a file on top of it. So you have layers, and you can go back at any point and see a previous version of the file. An example in the slide I have there, I just have the file for PowerPoint I was working on, and you can see that there are a 1-minute version, 11-minute, and 20-minute. If I went back to that today, you would see yesterday's version, the day before's version, and so forth. Recently, one of our catalogers needed a file on a PowerPoint that she did in December. She still had the file, and we were able to go back through all the versions and find the exact file from December 15th and pull out the information she needed from that version and put it in the current version. It's very, very useful. I go to people's computers all the time and I see them save, files, and it says version 1, version 2, or it has dates after it after each file. No longer need to do that. Just save the same file and the cloud storage will keep a version for you. This kind of system is much faster than a traditional model where you're saving on a server because it uses what's called block level syncing. We've all been in a situation where we saved the file and we have to sit there and wait for that file to finish going to the server before we close. Because if you close it before it's finished, you could get cut off. You're going to lose the file and have to start over again. With block level syncing, let's say you have a 100-megabyte file. That file is broken down into small little segments, and we'll just say for ease of use, it breaks it down into 101 megabyte files. If it's saving and you get 99% of the way through, and for something happens, you lose your internet connection or your computer shuts down, the next time you you open the computer, it will pick up where it left off and do that last 1%. It doesn't have to start over again. Under the old model, it would have had to start over again and save the entire file back. Another advantage of this, if you say you're working on a giant PowerPoint, we have a safety team PowerPoint, which is about 300 megabytes in size. If someone makes a one-word change in there, it doesn't have to save the entire file. It just saves the one little block that was changed. And so the syncing is much faster. You're not constantly using your internet to upload and download a 300 megabyte file. You're just syncing the changes that take place. And the last thing that's an advantage is that users now have control over who sees their files and who they share with. You can decide who you want to share with. You can decide who you don't want to share with. You don't have to contact an IT admin and say, can you give so-and-so access to these folders? It's the user that has the choice. On the flip side of that, one of the biggest cons we have in IT is that users can share their files, because it's very much like hitting reply all on your email. You don't know exactly where it's going. And if a user's not careful what's happening, they could share some very dangerous stuff. We recently had a new employee nearly share the entire finance folder with everybody. We caught it in time and pulled it back and stopped it, but it can happen. So, you know, it's good that you have the access, but you have to be careful with it. The other thing is that it can be slow. I just said that it's fast, but it can be slow, particularly here in Illinois. I'm not saying any names, but their name sounds like front ear. The internet can be very, very slow, dial-up speeds. And if you're trying to share files with someone who's working on dial-up, it's ridiculous. Our executive assistant lives in an area where they do not have very good internet. She's constantly uploading and downloading files, and it's a major pain. She usually has to come into the office and do it simply because we have faster internet. Generally speaking, most people nowadays have good internet, but there are places in Illinois, particularly the rural areas, where it is a super huge problem. And then the last problem that we find when we come into this and cons of it is the learning curve. It used to be you just saved the file, you knew where it was, you went back to it. Now you have to find the path. Is it in the OneDrive? Is it on the desktop? Where is it? And people are a little hesitant about it. They want, if I save it to my desktop, can everybody see it? No, you know, you're only going to see it if you save it in this shared folder. And people get a little hesitant. We have one leadership team person who says she simply will not ever use the shared folder OneDrive. Truth is, she is using it. She just doesn't know it, but she has this just fear of not sharing something that they don't want to use, and it's a problem. There's also issues when you open a submenu and you see new features inside there, like free up space or always keep on this device. They don't know what those things mean, and they can be a problem. All right, some best practices. I'm gonna unshare this PowerPoint and bring up a couple folders that I have. So I have two accounts here. Hopefully you can see this. I have, is it still playing? I don't think it's sharing right. Hold on a second.
We can see your file folders.
You can see the file folders? Thank you.
Yeah, the OneDrive, yeah.
Okay, good, because normally I have a big green around it that is being shared, but it doesn't have that now. Zoom must have made a change. The way I suggest you share files is to not share files, but instead share folders. If you're sharing files, you can get very confused as to who has access to those files. For instance, there's a file right here. You can see the little icon right here that says it's being shared, but you don't see who that's being shared with. You have to dig into some information to find out where that file is being shared. So my suggestion is you share folders and not files. So I'm gonna make a little folder here. Let's call it, Paul's my middle name and John's my first name, and we're gonna call it the shared files. And we create that folder. Now, if I share that folder with my other Outlook account, I can edit specific person. My other account, if I go in my email, will get the option to share. I'll approve the share. And I'll go back to my files and my shared folders, and come on, show up. There it comes in finally. So now I'm sharing this folder. Anything that I do inside this folder, I know is being shared with Paul. If it's not inside there, it's not being shared by Paul. If anything I create inside there, I know will be shared. I don't have to reshare another item. And I know exactly what's going on all the whole time. If I create a Word document inside here, we'll call, there we go. We'll just call this an example. And it's saved, I can close it. That shared file will pop up inside of here. There it is already inside of the other folder. So my advice is to not share files, but to always share folders. Whether, and in the folder, the name, put who it's being shared to, so you know. You don't have all files shared. This file here is being shared with me also, but it can't be seen very well, and I don't know who it is. That's the primary way to share files, I think. Don't share individual files, share folders. When you're done with that file, you can delete it and it's no longer being shared, or you can just unshare the file and the files are removed back from it. It's an easy way of organizing what's going on and keeping someone from seeing something they shouldn't have. Let's bring up my PowerPoint again. Play from the current slide. Some other things that I think are best practices when sharing files is only share files with people that are using MFA. If you don't know what MFA is, that's called multi-factor authentication. That's the system that when you sign into your bank account, it gives you a text message and you have to put the text message in to know who it is. If they don't have MFA turned on their machine, anybody can be looking at the files and you do not know who it is. So find out if you're using it. It's free with any Outlook account. It's free with any Google account. Turn it on. It's very simple, and just don't share unless they're doing that. The other thing is obvious, make sure you set the permissions, whether it's they can edit or whether they can just view. Actually in Google Drive, I think they call it comment and edit, or comment and what's the other version? View, I think maybe just, but make sure you set the proper things. And the final thing is share with specific people only, never share files with groups. You cannot always be certain what groups are sharing the files. Plus, if you share with specific files, the file cannot be reshared. It can be only shared with the person who is using it. So if I share a folder with Steve can't reshare those files with somebody else if it's shared as a specific folder. If it's shared as a group, or if it's just shared as a regular link, anybody can reshare those files, and you're not able to keep track of what's going on. I suggest you use the web app as I just did. Do not use the desktop client. The desktop client works, but the web app is much more accurate. Both Google and Microsoft are putting all of their development into the web apps because they want people to be able to access them easy. All you need is a Chromebook, and you can get to your Google account, you can get to OneDrive, you can do it with a 10-year-old computer or whatnot, you can do it with your phone. The desktop apps work, but they're usually about 3 to 6 months behind what you can do inside the web app. So use the web app. It says it has the latest options and all the latest security features. Sharing externally, I recommend you don't ever share anything outside of your group with anyone because you cannot keep track of it. If you share to a team or a group outside of your organization, you have no access to who's in that group. So you do not know where it's being shared with. If you do have to share, in IHLS, we don't allow sharing outside of the group with a few very extreme exceptions because you can't keep track of your files and you could accidentally share something that's very, very sensitive. The other thing to keep in mind is that when you're sharing outside, you can only share with the same organization. If you use Microsoft, you can only share with Microsoft people. If you use Google, you can only share with Google. You can't go across accounts. And then when you are sharing externally, I kind of want you to do it the opposite way I just said before. I want you to put the files inside of a folder, but only share the file. If you share the folder, you could accidentally drag and drop something inside that folder, important, and not even know you did it, wind up sharing it with somebody else. So share specific files only. And then the last thing is to set an expiration date. The premium services for both Google and OneDrive, they can set expiration dates and the files will delete themselves after 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 days, 4 months, whatever you set the time to. I recently opened up my Google Drive that I haven't used since I had my business 3 years ago, and I found a file in there, an Excel file from someone who had shared it with me, and I'm really sure they still don't want to be sharing that file with me. OneDrive versus Google, which one is better? Honestly, my answer is neither of them. They are almost the exact same thing, and they're the exact same thing on purpose. Neither of them wants to have anything involved that the other one doesn't want to do. There are some minor differences, like Google gives you more space for free. but if you're in a business, you're probably paying for it anyway. OneDrive does the block level syncing so that you don't have to sync a whole file. Google doesn't do that, but they have extremely fast servers, so it all makes up for the difference. So which one is the better one to use? Well, it really depends on what you're going to use it for. If you're in business, then you must use Microsoft. All businesses use it. There's very few businesses that are Google businesses. Even at Google's ad department, where they're selling ads to businesses, if you go there, you'll see that they have Microsoft Office and OneDrive on all their computers in the Google offices, because they are dealing with businesses. They are sharing files with businesses. They have to use a Microsoft project. On the flip side, Google dominates education, mainly from libraries. You might consider using Google then if you're in a library, because you're dealing with students and education. Also, Android phones. Half of the continent has an Android phone in their pocket. 60% of users have Gmail accounts, and this one staggers me. 84% of Microsoft employees have an Android phone with a Gmail account on it. So unless you are working in the business world, I suggest you use Google, because you're going to be communicating with more people that have the option of doing it. In my business, when I ran my business, I used Google. Now that I'm working for IHLS and we're more of a business-oriented thing, we use Microsoft. That being said, we have a few people who deal with our member libraries and our member schools all the time. And those two people that do that, they have Google accounts, because that's who they have to communicate with. As far as island resources, I'm not going to really get into a whole lot of actual demos. Don't have time for that thing. I suggest you go to the edu.gcfu. That is essentially the Goodwill organization. They have an absolutely free, what amounts to a lynda.com site, where they teach people how to use tech programs, how to build a computer, how to repair a computer, how to use specific programs. They have an amazing tutorial on both Google Drive sharing and both OneDrive sharing. And I also put the support pages for Microsoft and Google on there, but the Goodwill stuff is far better than anything that Microsoft did. I think it's because the Google stuff was, or the Goodwill stuff was probably done by educators, and the Microsoft and the Google stuff was probably done by engineers. So, you know, engineers aren't very team oriented, let's say. That's all I really have for information of it. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. I can show some specific stuff with my computer as far as sharing, if you have any questions about that. You know, at this point, I don't have anything else for you. Let me end my share here.
Wow, that was a lot. That was a lot of good information.
I tried to squeeze as much into my time frame, but I really could have talked for much longer.
Yeah, I find myself thinking, can I just like have an hour of your time? I don't see any questions in the chat. I have some thoughts, but I want to open it up. I definitely, someone asked if you guys would share your slides, and I think for sure, if that's okay with you, we'll add that into the recording when we send that out. I think Tamara can make sure that happens. I don't see anything. Anybody want to ask a few questions? Oh, wait, let's see. When you set the expiration and it expires, it doesn't delete the original file, just the shared drive of the file?
No, it doesn't delete the original. It's just the share goes away on the other end. So they no longer have access to it. If they tried to click on it, it would just disappear from site.
Okay, yeah, that was new to me. I did not know you could set an expiration in the file. So
it's very handy. Like I said, I have files in my Google Drive that people have shared from years ago. And
Nikki, do you say there's an FMA for Outlook?
Yes, there is a free. You can turn on. It's basically, if you're using the free account, then what you have a Microsoft account and you turn MFA on for your Microsoft account. If you're using Outlook and you're using the paid version, you have to you have an administrator, someone that manages their account. They can turn on MFA for that as well.
I'm sorry, what is FMA?
It stands for multi-factor authentication. That's the system that everyone knows. When you sign into your bank account, you get a text message and then you have to type in the code. It basically is a way of guaranteeing you are the one looking at the computer. Without that, anyone could sign into the computer and look at the files you shared to them, and there may be sensitive data in there.
Right, okay. I really like the tip about sharing a folder rather than just a file. Now, so can I go back and look at some of my folders and share them
You can create, if you have shares files, you can create a shared folder for those people and then drag all those files into that shared folder. They'll still have access to them. You now just have them in one location and you know who they're being shared with.
Okay. Anybody else have a question or thought? You can turn on your if you don't want to put it in the chat, you can turn on your mic.
When to share a folder versus when to share a file. If you're sharing internally, then I suggest you share a folder and anything you put in that folder would then be shared. It all makes it very easy because you don't have to share every individual file. If you've got a folder already shared, anything you do inside that folder will also be shared, or anything you put inside there will be shared. That's very good for internally because you don't need as much security. If you are sharing a file with someone outside your group, then I do not suggest you share a folder, you share a specific file. Because if you share a folder, there's a chance you could drop something in that folder by accident. Believe it or not, it happens all the time where somebody calls me and says, I've lost my file, I can't find my file, OneDrive deleted it. Well, it wasn't deleted, they just dropped it in the wrong place by accident. So if you drop something in that shared folder and you're sharing externally, then you've given up data that you shouldn't have given it. So when you're sharing externally, then only share the specific file.
That makes sense. John, I'm wondering if for your organization, you have kind of like a guidelines or a cheat sheet for your staff for some of these things you've gone over?
No, we don't, and we probably should.
I was going to ask you for a copy of that if you had it.
No, we don't. We probably should. I'm in charge of throwing that stuff up on the website, so probably that's actually a really good idea. I might throw something up like that.
Yeah, because I think there's so many resources you can look at it, and I like that you put some links to some training. But if we could kind of, I know for my organization, there's a wide variety of skill sets. So people who use Microsoft a lot and some who use it just a little bit, it might be difficult for them to do their own training if we were to give them some guidelines.
I'm responsible for the software and those things, and I get questions all the time in Microsoft Office that I can't answer simply because I just don't use it as much as somebody else does. So I will often just, hey, who knows this answer? And somebody always does.
Right. Oh, I thought too, maybe people could put in the chat what they are using for file sharing. I know we're using, OneDrive all the time, but maybe we could just do a little, everybody could share if people are using Google or OneDrive. I know that, COVID forced us to switch to OneDrive. And now that we're back in the building more, it's still a little bit of a challenge. Did I save it to OneDrive? Did I put it on the network?
What Donna just asked there, it does kind of go contradictory to what I said, but what you're doing there is you're actually working on a program with other libraries that are putting stuff in, assets you need for those programs. So in your case right there, you don't have any choice but to share the folder and have all those organizations do inside there. That's a great example of kind of contradicts what I said about sharing files. What I'm more specifically talking about is if you're dealing with, let's say we just did a remodel, so we were sharing a lot of stuff with color art. We would share the individual files with color art because we don't know on the other side who's looking at it. We wouldn't want to share a folder with a lot of stuff we didn't know was in it. In your case, the other libraries are putting stuff in that folder, and I think it's an excellent way of doing what you're doing there. Is there benefits using Dropbox ever? Dropbox is a great service, and it's free. The problem with it is with the Google and with the Microsoft is that you also free. You have access to Word, you have access to Docs, you have access to Sheets or Excel. Just for having a OneDrive account free, you get access to an entire Word suite. It's online only. It's not the programs, but it's still the Word suites, and that's something that Dropbox simply can't match. It's great for sharing files amongst your family, that sort of thing, but I don't think Dropbox is really great in the business world. And somebody says they use OneDrive and SharePoint. OneDrive and SharePoint are essentially the same thing. SharePoint is actually where all of OneDrive's files are stored, and OneDrive is basically how you access those files and look at them. But OneDrive and SharePoint are essentially the same thing. There's almost no difference between them.
Just looking through to see if we covered all the other questions.
I just want to say thank you, John, because that really cleared up. You put it in a very remedial way that I could understand everything.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we got everything there. Last minute here for anyone to ask any more questions. John, are you okay if people have a question in a week and email you and
Sure.
pick your brain?
Sure, I'll make sure my email's in the PowerPoint that I send to you that you post up, okay? Super.
That's great. All right, thank you so much. We can transition over to Nikki. It's 11:32. So go ahead and take it away. Nikki's going to share the My Library Is campaign.
Hi, everybody. So let's see. I'm going to just share right away. Hang on here. So most of you probably, hopefully, are somewhat familiar with mylibraryis.org. Just to kind of refresh your memory, I think it was in 2018 when Rails was doing our planning for our strategic plan at the time. We did a lot of town halls and whatnot, and we're asking libraries, what was something that they wanted, and they wanted a resource that was both resource sharing, but it was also a place where libraries of all types and sizes could go to find find inspiration, find tools, find different things that were going to help promote the value of the library. I think most, if not all, the people on the call today are public libraries, but Rails also serves academic libraries, school libraries, and specialized libraries. And so no matter what type of library you come from, you have different needs, but pretty much in one way or another, any type of library is needing to advocate for, keeping their doors open, essentially, or, getting, if you're a public library, getting money from your community or, however your district works, or speaking to the board or speaking to potential users. In the case of like maybe a specialized library to a parent, or an academic library to a parent institution, to any kind of funder. Because as we know, a lot of people in our communities don't necessarily understand a library's worth. So as marketers, I'm preaching to the choir here, but you all know that that is a huge part of what you do, right? Of what we do. So that idea is why the My Library Is campaign and then website was created. So it's been up now for 2 years. God, 2 years? The COVID year confuses everything. So I think we've been going for 2 years, maybe 3, no, 2, it's been 2. And actually just recently as well, Heartland, IHLS, came on as a contributing member as well. So that's really new, but with their being part of it as well, we're just hoping that the website, the resources will grow more and more. So as I said, the My Library Is, which we just say MLI most of the time in-house as our shortened lingo. MLI is the basic thing is to help you promote the value of your library. And we do this through sharing. Both Rails and then Heartland can share on the website, but you can share on the website. We have, let me just show you here. So this is it's just mylibraryis.org. This is the main page. I have to collapse our Zoom here. Okay, so if you scroll down, you'll see, some videos that we've done, and then things that are specific to your library type here. but the main menu is just up on top here. And the thing that, there's two main things that I'll request from you guys today, or that you should make sure you're familiar with, is the sharing showcase here, and then the blog and stories. Well, the sharing showcase is where we share and you share, whether it's, you know, marketing collateral that you've done, and we could use a lot more of that, to be honest, videos that your library has made, press releases that you've written, style guides and marketing plans. You can see them all here. We just added vaccine education. You know, if your library is doing something specific for that, or for, you know, any of the things I mentioned, it's a way to share your information. I'm just going to open up marketing plans here and see what's in here. I actually didn't look at this one really recently. And basically, by sharing, you're helping out somebody else. You know, not every library, let's be honest, not all of you are going to need this. You either are big enough, or you have a designated marketing person, but a lot of smaller libraries don't. And even if you're not a smaller library, sometimes you've never written a marketing plan, right? And so it's great to just have something to look at, again, whether it's a plan, whether it's some kind of collateral, whether it's somebody's video, it gets our creative juices flowing. So putting it here can really help your fellow libraries. I wanted to show you something that people really have liked and that we created for all 4 library types. These are the talking points. And the talking points were created in such a way that they could be, did I go to the wrong page? That they could be just printed out and shared with your library staff. And I will open up the public library one here, because you guys are mostly, if not all, public libraries. So this was done in a way that could be like a quick little cheat sheet. You know, if someone says something like, well, why do we even need a library anymore? You know, nobody reads books, or everybody does it digitally. You know, why is there the building? You know, it's questions like that we get all the time, that these talking points are going to help you answer. I know a lot of bigger things. Someone at the front desk is obviously going to send to the marketer or to the director or the spokesperson, but there's a lot of things that we should just be able to speak freely and easily about with, I mean, honestly, even neighbors and friends, right? Not just patrons. So, you know, you could talk about like what an excellent investment the library is in the community, that the fact that it's the center of the community. So these are just like, this is just a little 2-pager. You can print it out, you could share it with your staff members. I just really like those, because I think sometimes people get, you know, what am I supposed to say? You get tongue-tied. So along with sharing, we also encourage people to share their library stories and blogs. So they're 2 different things. So the story is, you know, that honestly, they can even come from patrons. We have a way for patrons to add their stories as well. But, you know, if something just really heartwarming or cool or interesting happened, you can share a story. And stories are, you know, more those moments, those special little tidbits that you would share that kind of talk about what libraries mean to people. You know, one of my coworkers always says that he has the perfect story because his daughter went to an anime club at their local library. I think it's Homer Glen, and she went on to study Japanese and is now living in Japan. You know, it's like that moment that changes people's lives, you know, that first introduction to a book or whatever it might be. homework help, whatever. So stories are more those nuggets. Blogs are, what we think of. They're maybe more educational, something about a best practice that you've learned, that you've done at your library. Maybe you went through a really successful referendum or an unsuccessful referendum, but what did you learn? By writing a blog, could others learn from that experience? So the whole website is viewable without being logged in. You can easily go through and, check out any pieces, like the return on investment calculator, whatever. It's not, you don't have to be logged in. You can even add a story without being logged in. But if you wanted to share to the sharing showcase, again, that's your marketing collateral or, any kind of video or plans that you would need to be logged into. And if you want to share a blog, you'd need to be logged in. I'll come back to that in a second, but the logging in, it's just your L2 username and password. So it's something that you're already used to using, either logging into L2 or logging into the Rails website. You use the same thing. So my library is same login. I'd like to wrap this up by just really encouraging everyone to share, but we're really looking for a lot of bloggers. Right now, we have a wonderful My Library is advisory team. And I think there's 6 or 8 people on there right now. And they are regularly blogging. If you do blog, it does not get posted right away, or I should say our advisory team, they do not get posted right away, but they're scheduled. If anybody else who's not on the advisory team wants to blog, you just send it to communications@railslibraries.org and we will, read through it, post it. If you want to blog, but you don't know how, just, again, email us and we can talk it through. We can maybe plan a date for you if you want to do something in the future, that you have an event coming up. The blogs are the most read thing on the website. They get so much attention. I think people are, that's just like a really evidence space where people are really, really learning from each other, from your trials and tribulations and successes. And so I encourage you all to, just look around, think about what you've been doing, think about, maybe it's not even one of your own successes, but another staff members. You can blog for them or encourage them to blog for themselves. It's so well received. People just love. And so you could see that there's actually probably more blogs on here than any other shared resources. So again, I'm just, and I will go back to one thing that, John was talking about. If you are collaborating, and Donna mentioned, if you are collaborating with another library on a project, this file sharing is not for you. This is not that kind of thing. You're going to use Google Drive probably, or OneDrive, but this is really helping the library community out, if you want to think about it that way. That's it in a nutshell. So does anybody have any questions? Please consider sharing and blogging.
Thanks, Nikki. That was really good overview for me. I know I needed to, I didn't realize that it had so many stories already. So that's great.
Yeah, and it's really, every time I look at it, There's so much on there, actually. We continue to add stuff. You guys continue to add stuff. Heartland is starting to add stuff. And once that blossoms, you know, we'll have Heartland libraries sharing stuff. And so it's just growing. And, you know, honestly, it's for you. So if you guys see something that's missing or would like to see something different or whatever, you know, communications@railslibraries.org, or just me, Nicole.Zimmerman@railslibraries.org, either one. But yeah, I mean, the website really is for our libraries, and we're actually going through, we're just starting our next strategic plan. And so you might have seen in the last Rails e-news that we are starting town halls up. And so, you know, please be part of one of the town halls and talk about, you know, I'm not sure what they're all going to ask at each session. So, but, you know, please feel free to join in on that. You know, we really want feedback from libraries. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've seen the town halls, and I think it's another great resource. We're all so busy, but sometimes we just,
I know,
something comes across and it resonates with what we're working on. And so
yeah,
it's great to have these extra resources for sure.
And I'll be super honest, with the town halls and with the Rails e-news, we totally listen to your feedback. It's not like, oh yeah, we heard that and then ignore it. I mean, everything Rails does is based on your feedback. So I think it behooves you to participate in whether it's My Library Is, or whether it's, you know, these town halls coming up, or, you know, feedback on the e-news, anything. So
that's great. It's really great to hear that, you know, you're looking at the feedback. For me, I know that I felt like, oh, I don't know if I can write that long form, but it looks like probably you'll accept, you know, even if it's a short like summary of something that you worked on.
You know, the blogs really aren't that long. We don't even, we want less than 500 words.
Okay.
So, and it's really, I think it's a little, it can be a little daunting for people, but they're very conversational. They're very just, hey, this is what we've been doing, or this is, you know, my success here. It's, you shouldn't have to, don't worry. We just want, you know, we just want that from you. We just want your knowledge and your experiences. Like I said, people love reading those blogs. And honestly, if you write something up and you like want me to take a look at it first, that's fine. I don't care, you know. So, or if you think you have an idea, but you need to bat it back and forth, I'm here for that too. So
that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a little bit inspired. I think we send out a weekly e-news to our staff just about whatever we need to tell people. And I was thinking I might just put an article in every month at least to kind of show the rest of the staff that there is this resource. So I just want to
that would be fantastic. Yeah. And you know, ask them if they have something to share in terms of a story or a blog. Exactly. And if you, again, sometimes those two things can be a little confusing to differentiate, but if you read a couple of each, you'll get the difference. And most of you know Dan Bostrom, I think. He is on paternity leave. Oh. He just had a little baby girl a few days ago. Well, gosh, 6 days ago already. And but he's the contact person for the My Libraries advisory team. In his absence, I am. So if any of you are out there, yeah, I mean, he too, he as well, when he gets back, you know, he'll be more than excited to talk to you about too, like your idea, Andrea, about, you know, sharing it with staff as well. So.
Okay, one other thought I had is we have a pretty active teen advisory group, and they kind of are looking for a way to talk about their experiences. That something also that could be added to?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Absolutely. There's no reason why not. And if they are doing, marketing collateral for any of those teen groups too. That would be great to share in the sharing showcase as well. Those things aren't necessarily there to be used as, what's the word I'm looking for? Templates, but they're for ideas. They're for, just to help somebody out that might be wanting to do something similar, or to have a resource. Hey, look what they're doing over at Palatine. Maybe I'll pick up the phone and call somebody there. So yeah, no, totally. That would be awesome. We would love more teen stuff on there.
Yeah, I think they want to kind of share things that work and don't work, because teens is, that
it's tricky.
It's hard to get them involved in libraries sometimes. So
yeah, no, that'd be great.
Okay, anybody else have any thoughts or questions for Nikki? She's already shared that, she's available.
Yeah, I see Donna mentioned. Donna's one of our advisory members. She writes, the blog is a great resource for idea sharing among systems about successes. If you have a really great program or outreach, sharing it on the blog helps spur the creative juices at other libraries. Amen. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, and I will just, Donna mentioned, there is also an email newsletter that is from the My Library Is newsletter. It's not the large Rails e-news, but there's also one that is My Library Is. And you know what? I don't even know off the top of my head how to sign up for that. So I will try to find that out in the next couple of minutes here, so we can get you guys to do that. Maybe Donna, maybe right off.
I do get that, and honestly, I can't remember how I did sign up for it, but I did sign up for it.
No, all of a sudden I'm like, I know once you sign up for something, right? You're like, how did I do that? It might be on the My Library's website. I'll look while we're wrapping up here.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Don't be shy. Share.
Yeah, I will agree with Nikki. I think that libraries and librarians and library staff, we do not toot our own horns very much. And I think we're just sometimes not used to that. It can be a difficult thing to do, is brag, but go ahead and brag, even if you don't think much about it. Like Nikki said, it could inspire someone else or contribute to, an idea that they're trying to get going. And we're all from different size libraries. So usually I have one or two nuggets from any networking meetings that I go to. So don't be afraid to share. I'm kind of talking to myself too. Okay, well, thanks so much to all our speakers. Really appreciated everything that you've shared. And I definitely have some things to think about and bring back to our library about file sharing for sure. And yeah, I'm definitely going to add a link to My Library Is to our staff e-news just to get that in front of people's minds. So.
Oh, and I see Samantha and Donna found our links. So yeah, I was just starting to look. So on the My Library Is website under Get Started and About, there is a link to the newsletter there. So you guys can sign up for that as well.
Okay.
And that doesn't come out too often. I mean, I know the Rails e-news is weekly, but the My Library Is, I think, gosh, it's maybe only monthly.
Okay.
So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh
monthly.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for the help, Donna. Okay. So one little last reminder: in October, we're not going to have a roundtable meeting, but the ILA Marketing Forum, we are going to host a networking event at the ILA conference. So we'll have an informal discussion on Tuesday, October 12th, from 4:15 to 5:15. So if you want to learn more about the forum, or you want to share some ideas, please join us on that day. We also really would love to welcome anyone else who wants to be involved in the forum and get involved on the board. Please reach out to myself or Tamara about that. We'd love to have some new members, some fresh blood, if anybody wants to become a part of the forum. She put her email there in the chat. And again, thanks for showing up and participating in this roundtable. Tamara, do you have anything else to add?
I do not have anything else to add. I did include a link for the networking event, and you do not have to be registered for the ILA annual conference to attend the networking event.
Oh, that's good. I didn't know that. Okay, great. You can just show up. All right, thanks everybody. I will close the meeting now right before 12. Have a great weekend.
Bye, thanks.